The Ferreira mansion, once a symbol of opulence and power, became the setting for an unexpected and overwhelming drama. When a simple maid, Carla, found a winning lottery ticket, the discovery unearthed dark secrets and exposed the hidden weaknesses of a seemingly impenetrable family. Amid intrigue, betrayal, and a desperate search for redemption, Carla will face moral dilemmas and unimaginable challenges. Her journey of suffering, courage, and transformation promises to not only change her life, but also redefine the meaning of justice and compassion in a society corroded by corruption. Mrs. Ferreira, a 38-year-old woman whose outer beauty contrasted with the bitterness of her heart, entered the kitchen. She was known for her demanding and lack of patience with her employees. Her husband, Mr. Ferreira, a businessman always concerned about his investments and businesses, accompanied his wife. Carla, nervous, finished preparing the soup and served the first portion on fine china. Mrs. Ferreira took the spoon and, with an air of superiority, tasted the soup. His face contorted into an expression of disdain, and a sneer appeared on his lips. "This is inedible," she shouted, slamming the spoon down onto her plate. "Do you want to poison us with so much salt?" Carla felt like she had been slapped. Years of humiliation condensed into that instant, causing a spark of rebellion to appear in his eyes. She was always a dedicated employee who worked hard to please her bosses, but at that moment, all her efforts seemed in vain. Feeling wronged, she looked at Mr. Ferreira, expecting some intervention. Mr. Ferreira, worried about the situation, tried to calm his wife. "Honey, it's no big deal. We can make another soup." But Mrs. Ferreira was unyielding. Her cutting voice continued to expose every imagined flaw in Carla's work, turning the atmosphere in the kitchen into a verbal battlefield. Every word from Mrs. Ferreira was a whip that left invisible scars on Carla's soul. She felt anger and helplessness rising within her as she picked up the plates with shaking hands. Mrs. Ferreira's words echoed in her mind, and she fought to hold back the tears. That night, as she retired to her small room in the mansion, Carla reflected on her life and the humiliations she had endured. She thought of her family, especially her younger brother, who depended on her. What hurt her most was not the salt in the soup, but rather the constant lack of respect and dignity with which she was treated. That spark of rebellion that appeared in his eyes during the fight in the kitchen did not go away. On the contrary, she began to grow, fueled by memories of all the times she had been disrespected and humiliated. Mr. Ferreira, trying to maintain family peace, did not understand the depth of Carla's hurt. He only saw a dissatisfied employee, not the strong and resilient woman she truly was. The Ferreiras talked in tense whispers about debt, gambling, and businesses on the verge of collapse. For Carla, the revelation that her oppressors were as fragile as she was a shock. That night, she cried not only because of the humiliation she suffered, but because of the revelation that her bosses, who always seemed so powerful, were, in fact, vulnerable and fragile. A thought of revenge began to germinate in her mind, something she had never considered before. The next day, Carla woke up with her eyes still swollen from crying. The sun barely peeked through the silk curtains as she began her daily tasks at the Ferreira mansion. His movements were mechanical, his mind still reliving the events of the previous night. While cleaning Mr. Ferreira's office, a glow caught his attention. There, almost hidden among the disorganized papers, was a lottery ticket. Carla took the note with shaking hands, feeling her heart speed up. For a moment, she imagined a different life, far from oppression and humiliation. Without thinking twice, she put the note in her apron pocket and continued her tasks, trying to remain calm. Later that day, he heard Mrs. Ferreira's hysterical screams. "My ticket! Where's my ticket?" The house turned into a whirlwind of accusations and frantic searching. Carla, with her heart in her throat, denied knowing anything. The weight of the paper in his pocket felt as if it were made of lead. The search continued until late into the night. Every corner of the mansion was searched, every employee questioned. Tension was in the air, and Carla struggled to maintain her composure. Miss Ferreira, her eyes bloodshot with anger, began checking each employee personally. When Carla's turn came, she felt her boss's hands running over her body, looking for something. That night, Locked in her room, Carla turned on the small television. The presenter announced the winning lottery numbers and, in disbelief, saw how they coincided with those on the ticket in his pocket. A life-changing sum of $1 million was now in his hands. The initial euphoria quickly gave way to a whirlwind of contradictory emotions. Guilt, fear, and hope mixed in his chest. Carla wondered what she would do now. Return the note and return to your life of servitude? Or seize this opportunity, no matter the consequences? She thought of her brother, who desperately needed medical treatment. The decision seemed clear, but the moral weight was overwhelming. As I pondered my options, the pressure of the situation began to take hold. Mrs. Ferreira's words still echoed in her mind, reminding her of the constant humiliation she suffered. On the other hand, the sight of his brother, frail and sick, fueled his determination to do something to change their lives. Heartbroken, Carla went to bed that night with the note under her pillow. Her dreams were full of possible futures and nightmares about being discovered. She knew that any decision she made would change her life forever. The next morning, the Ferreira mansion was in an uproar. Mrs. Ferreira continued to interrogate the employees, while Mr. Ferreira tried to remain calm. Carla, trying to maintain a semblance of normality, continued with her daily tasks, but her mind was far from there. She knew she needed to make a decision quickly. The lottery ticket burned in his pocket like a promise of freedom and a chain of guilt. Fate dealt him a hand, but the moral price had not yet been determined. That night, locked in her small room in the mansion, Carla couldn't sleep. His thoughts revolved around the lottery ticket and the possible consequences of his actions. She knew that the decision she made would not only affect her life, but also that of her brother and even the Ferreiras. Carla turned on the television, hoping to distract herself with something, but nothing could take her mind off the note kept under her pillow. When the winning numbers were announced, she saw confirmation that she was a millionaire. Emotion took her by storm, and for a moment, she allowed herself to dream of a different life, far from oppression and daily humiliations. However, the initial joy quickly gave way to a flood of conflicting emotions. She felt guilt for keeping the note, fear of being discovered, and a growing hope that she could finally change her life and that of her brother. The expensive treatment he needed was now within his reach, but the moral cost was high. The moral dilemma weighed on Carla. She knew that by keeping the note she was making a mistake, but returning it would mean continuing her life of servitude, under the constant oppression of the Ferreiras. She thought about all the times she was humiliated, the harsh words and inhumane treatment. The note represented a way out, a chance for justice, even if committed by his own hands. Carla got up from the bed and started walking around the room, trying to think clearly. She knew she needed to make a decision quickly. He looked at the note again, feeling the weight of the paper in his hands. I could see the bright future he promised, but I also saw the shadow of guilt that accompanied it. She thought about her brother, who was in a fragile state and desperately needed medical treatment. He was her main motivation, the reason why she endured all the humiliations and hardships. The note could guarantee him the chance of a better life, free from the disease that afflicted him. As the moral dilemma continued to consume her, Carla decided to visit her brother in the hospital the next day. Maybe, when she saw him, she would find the clarity she needed to make a decision. The next morning, she got up early and, with the note hidden, went to the hospital. Seeing her brother lying in the hospital bed, connected to machines, Carla's heart ached. He was so young and full of life, but the illness had weakened him. The doctor explained that there was a new treatment, but it was extremely expensive. Carla knew the ticket could pay for it, but at what cost? As she held her brother's hand, tears streamed down her face. The decision she made at that moment was not just about money, but about morality, justice, and brotherly love. With a deep sigh, Carla made a resolution. She would do whatever was necessary to save her brother, even if it meant facing the consequences of her actions. With the decision made, Carla returned to the Ferreira mansion with new determination. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was willing to face anything for the sake of her brother. The atmosphere in the mansion was even more tense than before. Mrs. Ferreira, consumed by the loss of the note, became more cruel every day. Their screams echoed through the corridors, creating an atmosphere of fear and despair. Carla remained silent, observing everything. With each insult from Mrs. Ferreira, her determination only grew. She knew that soon she would need to act. The decision to use the note to save his brother gave him the strength to endure the daily abuse. However, paranoia began to set in. Every suspicious look, every strange sound, seemed like an imminent threat. That night, Carla decided to act. She packed a small suitcase, packing only the essentials, and hid the note in a safe place. Throughout the next day, she carried out her tasks with apparent calm, but her heart pounded every moment. I felt that Mrs. Ferreira was getting closer and closer to discovering the truth. While the tension in the mansion reached its peak, the unexpected arrival of Sophia, the Ferreira's daughter, brought a new dynamic to the house. A graduate of a university abroad, Sophia looked different from her parents. She showed kindness and understanding that Carla was not used to receiving. One day, Sophia approached Carla in the kitchen. "Is everything okay, Carla? You seem worried," she said, with a genuine expression of concern. Carla felt the words catch in her throat. She considered confessing everything to Sophia, seeking relief in the young woman's apparent understanding, but the memory of past humiliations made her retreat. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ferreira, consumed by the loss of the ticket, made a drastic decision. She hired a private investigator to find the missing note. Panic took over Carla. She knew she needed to act quickly. He hid the note in a place he considered safe and prayed that no one would find it. The investigator, a dark-looking man, began to roam the house. His presence was a constant threat to Carla. Her every move was watched, and she felt the siege was closing. In a moment of weakness, Carla visited her brother in the hospital. Seeing him hooked up to machines, fighting to survive, nearly broke her. Seeing the hope in her brother's eyes, Carla bit her tongue. She knew she needed to keep the note safe, for his sake. But the pressure was mounting. The tension in the Ferreira mansion was palpable, and Carla felt she couldn't keep the secret much longer. That night, while the house was asleep, Carla prepared to escape. She knew she couldn't continue living under that weight. With the note safely tucked away, she left her room, ready to leave the mansion for good. As Carla walked through the mansion's dark corridor, every sound seemed amplified, every shadow a threat. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and her hands were sweaty as she clutched her small suitcase to her body. The lottery ticket, hidden in a safe place, seemed to weigh tons. As she reached the lobby, a voice emerged from the shadows, causing her to stop abruptly. "Carla," the private investigator said, his tone calm and calculated. In an instant of despair, the words came out of his mouth like a torrent. She confessed everything, the note found, her intentions, and her fear of being discovered. The investigator listened silently, his expression changing from surprise to calculating consideration. When Carla finished, breathless and on the verge of tears, he spoke in a soft but firm voice. "I have a proposal for you. I can help you receive that award without anyone knowing. I have the necessary contacts. In return, of course, I will receive generous compensation." Carla looked at him, stunned. The offer was tempting, a way out of the moral dilemma he found himself in. But could she trust this man? Would I just be exchanging one problem for an even bigger one? With her heart in her throat and her mind in a whirlwind, Carla found herself facing a decision that would forever change the course of her life. Accepting the investigator's proposal meant a risk, but it was also the only way to guarantee the treatment his brother so needed. She pondered the consequences, weighing the desire for justice against the urgent need to save her brother. Finally, he made a decision. "I accept," said Carla, her voice trembling but determined. The investigator smiled, satisfied. "Excellent choice. Now, we need to act quickly." He explained the plan in detail, how they would claim the prize, what lottery contacts he had, and how they could avoid raising suspicion. That morning, Carla and the investigator left in an old car, taking secondary routes to avoid any possible pursuit. Carla, with her heart in her throat, constantly looked in the rearview mirror, afraid of seeing the lights of a car following them. The investigator, in turn, seemed calm and confident. "I have a friend in the lottery," he explained as he drove. "He will help us receive the prize without arousing suspicion. But we need to hurry." Carla felt the guilt eating away at her. He thought about his brother, about the promise of a better future, but he also remembered the humiliations and cruel treatment from Mrs. Ferreira. Every kilometer away from the mansion was a mixture of relief and remorse. In the mansion, Sophia watched the chaos with a mix of horror and suspicion. She knew Carla well enough to know there was something more behind her escape. Sophia, determined to discover the truth, confronted her parents. "What did you do to Carla?" he demanded, his voice shaking with indignation. "She's not a thief. Something else is going on here, and I deserve to know the truth." The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Ferreira, pale and decomposed, tried in vain to calm the situation. "We need to find a solution," he said, his voice weak. "Our reputation is at stake." But Sophia was not satisfied with vague answers. She wanted the truth. Meanwhile, Carla and the investigator approached their destination. The investigator's friend, a nervous-looking man, greeted them with a tight smile. "We have to act quickly," he said, starting to ask questions about the note. Just when it seemed like everything would go as planned, Carla noticed something strange in the attitude of the investigator's friend. The man's eyes avoided hers, and his hands shook slightly as he handled the note. A shiver ran down Carla's spine. Was she about to be betrayed again? At that moment, the office doors opened. Dona Sofia Ferreira, daughter of the Ferreiras, was back at the mansion after years of studying abroad. His arrival came as a surprise to everyone, especially his parents, who were in the midst of a silent crisis due to the disappearance of the lottery ticket. Sophia, with her elegant posture and discerning gaze, brought with her an air of freshness and a different perspective. Since her arrival, Sophia noticed something wrong. The atmosphere in the mansion was heavy, full of tension. It didn't take her long to realize there was something deeper going on. Observing the employees and her mother's erratic behavior, Sophia began to put the pieces of the puzzle together. One day, while helping to organize some papers, Sophia found Carla in the kitchen. She noticed the worried expression on the maid's face. "Is everything okay, Carla?" Sophia asked, with genuine concern in her voice. Carla, surprised by Sophia's kindness, hesitated before answering. "Yes, ma'am. I'm just a little tired," she said, trying to hide the anxiety she felt. But Sophia wasn't convinced. She knew there was more to that evasive answer. In the days that followed, Sophia continued to watch closely. She noticed that her mother was more irritable than usual, often exploding into tantrums for seemingly no reason. The employees, including Carla, seemed to be walking on eggshells, fearing any mistake that could trigger Mrs. Ferreira's fury. Determined to discover the truth, Sophia began to talk to the employees discreetly. She wanted to understand what was really happening. During these conversations, he learned about his mother's hiring of the private investigator. This only increased his suspicion that something very serious had happened. Meanwhile, Carla struggled with her conscience. The investigator's proposal still echoed in her mind, and she knew that the time to act was approaching. But Sophia's presence made her reconsider some of her decisions. There was something about the young woman that made her believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a more honorable way out of this whole situation. Sophia, in turn, was not willing to leave things as they were. One night, he decided to confront his parents directly. "Mom, Dad, I need to know what's going on," she said over dinner. "There's something wrong in this house, and you're hiding it from me." Mrs. Ferreira, surprised by her daughter's attitude, tried to minimize the situation. "It's nothing, Sophia. Just routine problems," she said, but her voice was shaking, revealing the tension within. Sophia wasn't fooled. "This isn't routine, Mom. Ever since I got here, I felt something is wrong. What's going on with Carla? Why did you hire a private investigator?" she asked, fixing her gaze on her mother. Mr. Ferreira, realizing that the situation was getting out of control, tried to intervene. "Sophia, your mother is just worried about some personal matters. There's no need for you to get involved in this," he said, trying to calm his daughter. But Sophia was not intimidated. "I care about this family and the people who work for us. If something is wrong, I have a right to know. What happened to Carla?" she insisted. Mrs. Ferreira, with no alternative, began to crumble under the pressure of Sophia's questions. "It's all her fault," she said, her voice full of anger and despair. "Carla stole something very important from us." Sophia, surprised, looked at her mother in disbelief. Stole? What could she have stolen that made her act like that? She asked, trying to understand the magnitude of the situation. Mr. Ferreira, realizing that there was no longer any way to hide the truth, confessed. It was a lottery ticket, Sophia. A winning ticket. It disappeared, and your mother believes Carla took it? Sophia was silent for a moment, processing the information. Then he turned to his parents. And if she did, why didn't you call the police? Why hire a private investigator? Mrs. Ferreira, speechless, let some tears fall. I just wanted to resolve this without scandal, she said, her voice breaking. Sophia, realizing the gravity of the situation, decided to take matters into her own hands. We will resolve this, but fairly, she said, determined. Carla deserves a chance to defend herself. And if she has something to say, we need to listen. With the truth partially revealed, Sophia knew she needed to act quickly to resolve the situation before it deteriorated further. Determined to fully understand what was happening, she asked to speak to the private investigator hired by her mother. The investigator, a man with a dark appearance and taciturn demeanor, was initially reluctant to share information with Sophia. However, the young woman was not intimidated. She insisted, reminding him that he had every right to know what was happening in his own home. Mr. Alves, Sophia said firmly, I know my mother hired you to investigate the missing lottery ticket. I want to know everything you've found out so far. Alves looked at Sophia with a calculating expression. Miss Ferreira, my investigation is confidential. I was hired by your mother, and I cannot share details without her consent. Sophia, however, did not back down. My mother is emotionally shaken and not thinking clearly. As a daughter and part of this family, I have the right to know. Please, Mr. Alves, we need to resolve this fairly. Alves, realizing Sophia's determination, finally gave in. Very well. So far, I have found no concrete evidence that Carla took the note. However, there is some evidence to suggest that she may know more than she is letting on. Sophia thanked the investigator and began planning her next steps. She knew she needed to confront Carla, but in a way that didn't make her even more defensive. He decided to speak to her directly, but kindly. Finding Carla in the kitchen, Sophia asked to talk in private. Carla, I need to talk to you about something important, she said, with a serious but friendly expression. I know my mother believes you got the lottery ticket. I just want to hear your version of the facts. Carla, feeling trapped, initially denied any involvement. I don't know anything, Miss Sophia. I swear I didn't catch anything. Sophia looked into Carla's eyes, searching for the truth. I believe you, Carla, but we need to get this straight. If you know something, anything, please tell me. I want to help, not punish. Carla hesitated for a moment, but the sincerity in Sophia's eyes convinced her to speak. Miss Sophia, I found the note, he confessed, his voice shaking. I didn't know what to do. I was scared of being fired or worse. Sophia felt a mix of relief and concern. Why didn't you tell us? We could have worked this out together. I was desperate, replied Carla, with tears in her eyes. My brother is very sick and needs expensive treatment. I saw the note as a chance to help him. I know it was wrong, but I didn't know what else to do. Sophia, with a heavy heart about Carla's situation, thought quickly. We will find a way to resolve this. I will talk to my parents and try to convince them to find a solution that benefits us all. Carla, relieved to have finally confessed, agreed to trust Sophia. She knew that the young woman was her best chance of resolving the situation without any major problems. Meanwhile, Alves continued his investigations. He knew he needed more evidence to fully clarify the case. His suspicions led him to take a closer look at the habits and movements of Carla and the other employees. The constant presence of the investigator in the mansion increased the tension. All employees were aware that they were being watched, which created an atmosphere of distrust and fear. Sophia, determined to solve the problem, spoke to her parents again. We need to resolve this fairly and quickly, she said. Carla confessed that she found the note, but she was in a desperate situation. We need to find a solution that helps us all. Mr. Ferreira, always concerned about the family's reputation, hesitated. This could ruin our reputation, Sophia. We need to be careful. Mrs. Ferreira, still shaken, finally agreed. Maybe Sophia is right. We need a solution that doesn't destroy our family. With the support of her parents, Sophia began to develop a plan to resolve the situation. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to find a fair solution for everyone. The tension at the Ferreira mansion reached a boiling point when Sophia decided it was time to resolve the situation once and for all. She called a meeting with her parents, Carla, and investigator Alves. It was necessary to clarify all the facts and seek a solution that was fair for everyone. The meeting was scheduled for the evening, in the mansion's living room. The atmosphere was heavy, and everyone present felt the weight of the moment. Carla, with her heart in her throat, knew that her fate was about to be decided. Sophia started the meeting, taking the floor firmly. "We are here to resolve the issue of the lottery ticket. Carla has already confessed that she found the ticket, but she was in a desperate situation. We need to decide how to proceed fairly." Mrs. Ferreira, still resentful, crossed her arms. "She should have told us from the beginning. This is stealing, Sophia. We can't just let it go." Carla, sitting next to her, lowered her head, feeling the weight of her boss's words. Sophia, however, did not back down. "I understand, Mom, but we need to consider the circumstances. Carla was trying to save her brother's life. We need to be fair and compassionate." Mr. Ferreira, always concerned about the family's reputation, tried to mediate the situation. "Maybe we can come to an agreement. Carla can return the note, and in return, we'll help pay for her brother's treatment." Carla looked at Mr. Ferreira, surprised by the unexpected offer. "Would you do that for me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Before he could respond, Alves, the investigator, intervened. "There is one more thing everyone needs to know. During my investigation, I discovered some irregularities in the Ferreira family's business. If this information reaches the public, it could cause an even bigger scandal." Alves' revelation fell like a bomb in the room. Mr. Ferreira turned pale, and Mrs. Ferreira looked at her husband with a mixture of shock and anger. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice full of indignation. Mr. Ferreira tried to explain, but the words escaped his mouth. He knew he had made mistakes, and now they were coming to light. "I did what I thought was necessary to protect our family," he said, his voice breaking. Sophia, seeing the situation fall apart, made a decision. "We need to resolve this transparently. If we hide the truth, we will only be delaying the inevitable. Let's confess everything and face the consequences together." Carla, feeling a mixture of relief and fear, agreed. "I will return the note, and you can use it however you see fit. I only ask that you help my brother." Mrs. Ferreira, visibly moved, reluctantly agreed. "Let's do it. But I hope everyone understands that our actions have consequences." With the decision made, everyone prepared to face the storm that was to come. Investigator Alves agreed to help the family deal with the legal repercussions, as long as they cooperated fully. The following morning, a press conference was called for the Ferreira family to confess everything. Carla, next to Sophia, was nervous but determined. She knew what she was about to do was the right thing, not just for her, but for everyone involved. The press room was packed with journalists, ready to capture every detail. Mr. Ferreira took the floor first, confessing the irregularities in his business and explaining the situation with the lottery ticket. "We made serious mistakes, and now we are here to correct those mistakes," he said. "My family and I are willing to face the consequences of our actions." Carla then took the floor, her voice trembling but firm. "I found the lottery ticket and kept it to help my sick brother. I know it was wrong, and I apologize for my actions. I hope everyone can understand my situation." Sophia closed the press conference, promising transparency and justice. "We are committed to righting our wrongs and helping those who have been affected. This includes ensuring the necessary treatment for Carla's brother." The press conference had a huge impact. The media quickly spread the news, and public opinion was divided. Some supported the Ferreira family's decision to confess and seek redemption, while others criticized them for their mistakes. In the mansion, the atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of relief. Everyone knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were ready to face it together. Carla and the Ferreira family's decision to face the truth and seek redemption marked the beginning of a profound transformation in the lives of everyone involved. The press conference, although controversial, brought a new perspective on justice, compassion, and responsibility. After the press conference, Carla felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. She knew her life would never be the same, but she was ready to face the consequences of her actions with her head held high. The lottery ticket, now returned, would be used in a way that would benefit not only the Ferreira family, but also other people in need. Sophia took the lead in creating a foundation that would use lottery prize money and assets recovered from her family's illegal businesses to help those who have been harmed. The foundation would be jointly run by the Ferreiras and representatives of the original beneficiaries of the charitable fund, ensuring transparency and fairness. Ms. Ferreira, still dealing with the repercussions of her actions, began to show signs of change. The public humiliation and selective amnesia caused by the accident made her rethink her priorities. She began to actively participate in the foundation's activities, looking for a way to make up for the harm she had caused. Mr. Ferreira, in turn, faced legal consequences for his actions. He knew he would need to pay for his crimes, but he was determined to use the time he had to make a difference. With Sophia and Carla's support, he began working on rehabilitation programs for businessmen involved in illegal activities, offering them a second chance. Meanwhile, Carla returned to visit her brother in the hospital. The treatment, now guaranteed by the foundation's money, began to show positive results. Seeing him improve was the greatest reward she could ask for. Every little bit of progress was confirmation that I had made the right decision. The Ferreira mansion, once a symbol of opulence and power, has become a center of community activities. The charitable events organized by Sophia and Carla attracted attention and support from people from all walks of life. The foundation's work began to have a significant impact on the lives of many, bringing hope and opportunity to those who needed it most. Sophia and Carla formed a strong partnership based on trust and mutual respect. Together, they faced challenges and celebrated victories, transforming the foundation into a model of social justice and corporate responsibility. Their story has inspired many to seek truth and redemption, no matter the obstacles. Investigator Alves, seeing the success of the foundation and the transformation of the Ferreiras, decided to offer his services to the cause. He used his skills to investigate and expose other corrupt practices, helping the foundation clear the names of many other victims of fraud and injustice. However, the path to redemption was not easy. The foundation faced many challenges, including public distrust and resistance from some sectors of society. But Sophia, Carla, and the others involved persevered, believing in the importance of their work. The media, initially critical, began to recognize the foundation's efforts. Reports highlighting the success stories and positive impact of Sophia and Carla's work helped change public opinion. The foundation has become a symbol of hope and transformation, inspiring other organizations to follow suit. The Ferreiras, now more united than ever, have learned to value honesty and compassion. They understood that true wealth was not in money, but in actions that benefited the community. The foundation became a lasting legacy, ensuring that future generations would not make the same mistakes. Carla, reflecting on her journey, felt deep gratitude for Sophia and the opportunity to make a difference. She knew that she had found not only justice for her brother, but also a greater purpose in her life. As the sun set over the Ferreira mansion, now a symbol of hope, Carla, Sophia, and the others involved knew there was still a lot of work to be done. But they were ready to face any challenge, united by the desire to do good and promote justice. The story of Carla, the Ferreiras, and the lottery ticket became a powerful example of transformation and redemption. She showed that even in the darkest times, there is always a possibility for change and a path to true justice.